Phil Foden, though, it's a good point raised by Chris. Phil Foden, JJ, we had the same conversation when we were watching it. We debated whether or not he did come on in the first game. We think he did towards the end.
He did, definitely did.
He didn't come on in this game. Why do you think that is? You've got some ideas, don't you?
Well, I think it's because he might give the ball away by trying things that will open up the opposition. Because what you can, so Grealish gets the ball, you put him on the wing, he dribbles a bit, he draws fouls, he gets you move the pitch slowly like rugby.
Yeah,
that's what he does. Sterling can get in behind, you trust him because he's a leader, captain, legend.
Yeah,
and it's just he's fast, he gets in behind. Basically, is what he does.
And he's got a goal scoring record in big tournaments.
Yeah, I think it's more for his. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Saka is good defensively and will do whatever the manager tells him, and is also good at driving with the ball. Doesn't try things. He tends to make things happen when he knows it definitely will come off.
It sounds like you're saying Phil Foden doesn't get on the pitch because he might do something.
Yeah, I know it sounds stupid.
Which is the same reason maybe you would want him on the pitch.
Yes, but the whole point is to not make mistakes. So like, I love Phil Foden as well. Yeah. I love watching him play. And he would get in the Spain team and would be one of their best players right now in the way they play. Perfect. Southgate doesn't play like that. He plays to minimise mistakes and keep it really nice and tight and control it and try and conserve your energy against the USA. Really slow tempo. Like, the USA could easily have won that game. Easily with some of the breaks they had on. Equally, I mean, that the free kick at the end almost went in with, was it Kane that headed it wide?
Yeah.
And that's what Southgate's playing for, that one
It was the 93rd
goal.
minute. I mean, I think it was an uncontested header. I think it was just a bit of an awkward angle.
He kind of shanked it wide with his head, didn't he? But like, you can, I mean, I think you could have changed things really early on because they were playing this, it was the 4-3-3, but slightly, what's the word? Not lopsided. What's the word? Asymmetrical, yeah. Because Mount effectively goes near like Sterling and Kane and Saka in a line. Can I draw a line? I've got a board up for you if you're listening to this on the podcast.
Incidentally, this is a good moment for me to mention for people listening to the podcast. You can watch us live on YouTube immediately after the final game of any game day. You can see what JJ is doing on the board. Although he'll try to do a good job of narrating it for the listeners.
I'm going to try really hard, yes, because what USA were doing, they had Weah and Wright with two forwards, so the block would start with these two. And then you have Rice, it plays between the triangle of, well, he was part of the triangle with Maguire and Stones. So you get triangle with Rice. And then Bellingham would drop in the right side to try and help out and offer a pass out when they were trying to build from the back. But then Mount was staying up for higher up the pitch with Kane and maybe Saka. And then USA just had everyone else locked down. So everyone else they were tight to and they couldn't get the ball into them. It was really a cleverly coordinated press. And when England just kept passing back to try and draw the USA out of bits, they might be able to get a ball into someone like Mount. But as soon as Mount got the ball, bang, someone's tight to him. Yeah. And the ball has to go back. So they were just really careful. They don't want to risk those passes anymore.
A good note here is that we watched this game with illustrator Alice, who's relatively new to watching football regularly, and she commented that it was almost as though in these moments the USA had 13 players on the pitch.
Yeah, I think because they were at certain points, I didn't watch it looking for their press in mind. I'm sure John McKenzie did, but I think they were man-to-man at certain points, but basically they were just making sure they knew the ball would go to certain areas so they could then lock that down and keep the ball where they wanted it to. And then when England didn't get forward, they didn't commit many players in the final third because they didn't want to open up any space for a counter-attack. Yeah. And when they counter-attacked, they had Pulisic, Wright, Weah, McKennie would be part of that. The Musa and Adams following up. Sometimes one of the full-backs would join in, and it was all really well coordinated. I agree with it being the tactical battle won by the USA, but I also think that Southgate I don't think he really cared. I think they had, in a weird way, control of the game, but not doing it. And people like Phil Foden, you bring him on to try and bring him back into this. You put Foden on at any point in this game, he'll receive in tight areas, try and dribble past a couple of players because he might get through and score that goal for you. Or he might be the one that can open up the packed defence, but he's also the one that might get tackled and then the ball turns over and they go up there.
JJ, I have a question. Sorry, just to cut in there, Joe. I can't remember a time in the game when England attacked with more than 4 players.
Yeah,
that was so disappointing. I think one of the best things the US did during the game was kind of take away Bellingham as a threat. Everywhere he went, there was pressure on him. Never saw him have an impact in the box really. And yet, anytime England crossed the halfway line, I was kind of desperate for them just to stop, build a phase, set up, and create some kind of crossing or passing angle, or at least a little bit of territorial dominance. It never happened.
There were a few moments in the first half. After about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it felt like there was a moment, JJ, where you said, "Oh, England are going to score soon." That's what it feels like.
It felt inevitable.
Because there were one or two moves in a row where Saka, particularly, I think, was able with one-twos to get through into the box.
Well, that was it. They were doing things like they were spraying a ball into one person who'd lay it off into another first time. So it's like a ball from maybe Mount into Kane, laying it off first time to Sterling, or a ball straight into Saka, maybe from Rice, and then he'd lay it off into Kane, who put it first time into Sterling, or other way around, Sterling to Kane to Saka, something like that. Quick combinations, one-touch passing, that pulls teams apart. It's why Spain are really good at creating chances in these tight areas, because the tempo is fast to stretch them out. When you've got a team who sits back, when the USA would go back into their block, it would very much be a 4-4-2, Pulisic slightly further forward. But they're trying to condense it, so the ball has to go wide, then the ball goes out to someone like Shaw, and then the only option is to put the ball in the box for a header. Even magical captain Harry Kane can't score a header in this congested box, so that doesn't work. So then they just keep it and they recycle it. It's that horseshoeing thing that John was talking about. You know, you go back, you keep it safe, you are defensively sound because you're not giving the opposition the ball, and you're also defensively sound because you're not leaving yourself vulnerable to the counter punch, which is exactly what the USA want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's worth saying, I listened to the Athletic Football podcast this morning, and they were saying on that they were giving Gareth Southgate the credit insofar as he is a manager who, you know, the last thing you can say of him is that he will underestimate an opponent at a tournament. I mean, clearly, like the way that England set up today showed a great deal of respect to what the USA team is able to do. That they didn't attack very many opportunities with more than 4 players also shows what they believe can be done to them on the counter-attack. And also, it's 0-0, and they've essentially qualified without having to do anything.
It reminds me of the Euros when they drew with Scotland. It was very much the same to me, very much. They knew it was a tough opponent who'd be super pumped up for it. Like, you knew USA would be up for this one, right into it, and they'd have all the aggression. I was saying to, I can't remember who I was talking to earlier, but you can't really manufacture that motivation. No. Like, England are much better than the USA. They have much better players. They've got more, you know, success historically. Blah blah blah. They're better on FIFA. All these things.
You wouldn't know it from today.
Well, no. But then this is the thing. USA really hyped up because they want to beat England. They really do, and they've got the tactics all right, the motivation right, and the players all played really well. England's touch were a little bit loose now and again. Yeah. So you get that sort of motivation going against you. Same with Scotland, really pumped up. Like 0-0 counted as a win for Scotland in that tournament. It really did. And England were poor in that game. And I looking back on it now with retrospect, I think they didn't care because they knew if they got a point out of that, they'd more than likely be through anyway. Sure. So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about Gareth Southgate and what people think of him in the future.
It's clever tournament management is what I think it is. Yeah. I'm trying to give him a bit of credit.
No, I think that's right. I think that's right.
I do agree. I just think that if you want to sell that to the public, you then have to actually go and win the tournament at the end of it, because otherwise it feels very unfulfilling.
No, of course it is. I think that's a bit over the top. Like they've got to a semi-final in the last World Cup. They've got to the final in the Euros. That's further than they've been for decades. I think that's like
I do agree, but right. I also think this is the richest talent pool they've had in decades too, maybe if not ever. I think that
what about the
golden generation?
But all the gold.
I remember all that gold. The golden generation were a quarter-final team, and this group of players I think is better. I think I'm a Gareth Southgate fan. I'm just trying to explain why the negativity exists.
You better be.
I know, but I think the problem becomes like England now. You may get further, but the trade-off in tournaments is this kind of performance, and okay, maybe they're conserving energy. Maybe this is in a way a reaction to the amount of football some of these players have played. Well, maybe, but there's plenty of American players who are playing Europe too. And it's very difficult to kind of rationalise because you always have these little questions. We've talked about Phil Foden, for instance. We've talked about how marginalised Bukayo Saka was. We talked about the lack of effect that Jude Bellingham was able to exert on this game. And I feel like it's a very reduced form of some of these players. And
absolutely, but they qualified.
If they qualify, fantastic. And if they go and win games and get far in tournaments, fantastic. I just think the journey for a lot of people is a little bit of a slog. And that's why there is a little bit of pushback.
If you liked today's video, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you did like it, you might be interested in How to Watch Football, Tifo's illustrated book. It's 52 rules for understanding the beautiful game on and off the pitch, and it is the perfect holiday gift. How to Watch Football is out now in stores and online. See the link in the description to find out more, and thank you for watching today's video.